Hello and welcome to Retirement Today. My name is Jenna Cairns, owner and financial advisor from Beacon Wealth Advisory, and we're here to help get you to and through retirement with financial peace of mind. If you'd like to listen to this podcast or any of our past podcasts, you can go out to Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music. We also have a YouTube channel. You can type in Beacon Wealth Advisory and it will bring you to our page, and you can hit subscribe to be notified every time we have a new video out. And we try to share something every week educational to give you more confidence about retirement. Also, if you have any questions about anything we talk about today on the show or you'd like to connect, give our office a call anytime at 1-800-994-8993 to set up a complimentary consultation. Again, that's 1-800-994-8993. Before we get started today, I always like to bring on my fabulous co-host, Jacqueline Gladhill, soon to be a bride. Hi, Jacqueline.
Well, hi, Jenna. Yes, it's a pleasure being here, and I'm excited. I'm channeling, my inner Jenna today with my pink. And I know it's also Love Month this month, also known for Valentine's Day. So, what are your plans? What are you doing for Valentine's Day?
Yeah, well, I've got some fun plans. We are on Friday, the day before Valentine's Day, we are having a Galentine's Day party. So I'm getting a bunch of the girls together, Jacqueline. If you lived closer, I'd invite you. But yeah, we're getting together for a Galentine's Day party. I especially like to invite my girlfriends that are single or maybe have lost a spouse that, Valentine's Day may not be the funnest time for them to come to the party and just let them relax and have fun. So we're doing that. And then, of course, I'm having a nice dinner with the hubby on Valentine's Day. So that'll be fun. But I'm sure you've got something that you've got planned. What are you guys doing?
Well, so funny enough that you say Galentine's on the 13th because, my best friend and I actually met on the 13th of February. And so we like to celebrate a little bit of like our friendiversary is what we
Oh,
call it.
neat.
So we do a Galentine's in there. And then with,
Good.
my fiance, I'm sure we like to cook at home. It makes it easier. We're not a crowds person or we have to be at dinner for a reservation time. So we just like to
Right.
spend it together.
Oh, that's nice. A nice dinner at home, right?
Absolutely.
Good, good. Well, and you have a lot to look forward to with this upcoming wedding and how's the planning going? Anything new on that front?
Nothing new. I mean, hopefully we're heading towards the lull of wedding planning. I can feel it coming.
Good, good. Well, I'm so excited for you. It won't be long. September will be here before you know it, right?
Yes, absolutely, Jenna. Well, and I'm excited because speaking of love, I think that this is a great conversation that we're going to be having today about, legacy planning. And it's
Mm-hmm.
about your loved ones and it's about, kind of sharing your love at the same time. So, where are we going
Yeah.
to start today?
Yeah, and really this month I'm going to be focusing on each week a different topic around enhanced planning. And as far as love goes, you are right. This is definitely going to be a topic that will help you show your family a lot more love. So we'll be talking about the living legacy, how to have a loving conversation about your legacy without it going sideways. And a lot of my clients tell me, Jenna, we've done a great plan. We feel great about our plan. The hardest part now is actually talking with our kids about our legacy.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's really
absolutely.
a pretty deep conversation to have with your family, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And just learning how to do it more effectively. But can I say, Jenna, people make this sound way more formal than it truly needs to be.
I agree. Yeah, it really doesn't need to be like a formal board meeting or something. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And I remember, we briefly touched on this actually, briefly before the holidays. because he
Yep.
said that it was a great conversation to even have when all your family is home for the holidays, right? It can just be simple conversation at the dinner table.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's interesting though, a lot of kids feel uncomfortable, I think, talking or even thinking about their parents passing away or having any kind of thoughts about last wishes. And there's a lot of reasons people don't feel comfortable having this, but I think underneath that is just a fear, right? A fear
Mhm.
of saying the wrong thing, a fear of being misunderstood, fear that once you open the door, you won't be able to close it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, a little bit a part of that last sentence is true.
Yeah, exactly. It is. So I'll tell you about a family, and here are some of their details, but very real. The parents are in their early 60s. They've got comfortable, well, thoughtful people, care very much about their kids.
Mhm. And were their kids adults?
Yes, late 20s, early 30s, all financially independent, doing well. The parents said, like I said, we've done all the planning. Now we really just need to sit down with the kids and explain it.
Yeah, explain the planning, right?
Yes. And that word matters. They invited the kids over, just like you said, made a nice dinner, and then walked them through everything: trusts, intentions, who would be responsible for what, really the whole legacy plan.
Well, and how'd it go?
Well, on the surface, great. Everyone was polite. The kids said, that makes sense. Everyone seemed pretty agreeable, which
Well,
is
I
good.
mean, yeah, which I think parents love.
Yeah, yeah. They left feeling relieved, really thinking, the kids know the plan and everything's good to go.
So let me just take a stab in the dark here and say that wasn't the end of it.
Yes, yes. Sometimes people don't always feel comfortable sharing what's really inside. So a few months later, one child stopped engaging. Another avoided follow-up conversations, nothing dramatic, just kind of distant.
Yeah, which is, a little harder honestly because you don't even notice necessarily it's happening and you can't, when there's no drastic change, you can't exactly go back and realize what happened or what the root cause is.
Yeah, it is harder. Exactly. And the parents said, "We don't understand. We finally talked about everything. They should be good, right?"
I think that they, just hearing the story, they really talked at their kids. Did they, create conversation with them and talk with their kids, or was it more at their kids?
Yeah, it was really more at the kids. Like, we've gotten together with our advisors, we've put everything down on paper. Here's the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
Jenna, that's the part that, we want people to hear, right? A legacy conversation isn't about just transferring information, it's about having a conversation. You're not just speaking the entire time either as the parent.
Right. Yes. It really is about creating safety,
Yeah.
so that the kids, for example, feel comfortable asking questions or being open with you about how they really feel, right?
Yeah, and I think it's more about the intention and the purpose and really the goals rather than all the little tiny details.
Yes, yes, I agree. And they need permission. They need permission to be able to speak and to open up about anything that they have questions on and to really share what's in their heart.
Yeah, so you're saying the kids need permission to really have feelings about it.
Yeah, permission to say, wow, this feels like a lot, or I don't really understand what you meant by this, or why is this person handling this part of the legacy plan? Uh, they just need to have that emotional safety to be able to tell really how they feel.
Yeah, I mean, parents should lead or lead with kind of curiosity if they do that, then the kids truly engage and want to answer the questions and come up with their own solutions that's best for them.
Yes, it's funny because really in anything, I think when people feel like they're part of the idea or coming up with it, it does seem like they tend to commit to it more, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So
More of the
Jenna, if this situation, wasn't the best and it didn't really have a great outcome, what is a good family meeting? What does that look like then?
yeah. Well, a good family meeting about legacy is usually shorter than people expect. And I've actually helped lead some of these family meetings for some of the families that I serve, Jacqueline. And, if you just sit down with a family and you just say, hey guys, let's get together and talk about our last wishes. Would that excite you, Jacqueline?
I think it would worry me, but it would also
Yeah.
excite me.
Right, right. Let's talk about our funeral. No, people
Yeah.
really don't like to have those conversations. So it's all about the approach.
Mhm.
But the families that I've really been able to help either lead this conversation or support them and almost practice before they do it, the best approach that we've found is really framing it around legacy. Legacy is such a positive word, it's loving, it's exciting. And so I think if you start off with the non financial parts of your legacy, so I always tell my clients, like, first, let's talk about the things that are very deep, that are
Mhm.
most important besides the money to families. Like, you know, how are the family recipes going to be passed on? Uh, what family values do we want passed on to the next generation? What stories do we want to have captured so that our legacy and our family uh, people know about us? And maybe even, why is your faith important to you? Why would you want that to be passed on to the next generation? So when we start off with the non-financial information, it really gets that conversation going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more about everyone's goals and what they want for, their life and
Yep.
maybe for their kids. When you kind of bring in legacy like that and you're saying faith or family recipes, you're picturing in your mind as a child, right? As the kid, you're picturing in your mind like what do I want for my kids? This can
Yeah.
get exciting for their kids
Yes.
and it's also a lot less polished.
It is. Yeah, it's not so stiff and like let's talk about the money and all that. So I have them start off with the non-financial pieces of their legacy and then just slowly get to the financial piece last and talk about,
Mhm.
okay, now that we've talked about this part of our legacy, now I want to share how we would like things to be passed on financially. And here's who you would call if something happened. And so that's why I, even as a financial advisor, have felt very grateful and blessed to be able to even be in some of those family meetings because it's really neat for the children to be able to look at me face to face and know that if their parents passed away that I would be there for them to
Mhm.
help them execute their parents wishes and really help walk them through this when they're going to be really grieving and sad. And but it has, when I've done that with families, Jacqueline, and we lead with the non-financial part of the legacy, it can actually bring families like so much closer together. Even it can be a really deep, loving conversation if done well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, I think when you brought it up earlier, Jenna, about asking curious questions to your
Hmm.
kids, it will not only create better conversations and, really discussing the wants, the ambitions, the goals, all of that, but you're also putting more decision making in the kid's mind, and
Right.
they feel like they are more a part of it and more a part
Yes.
of the decision making
Yes.
than, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And when you bring up the topic of legacy, I always tell people if you want people to open up, you have to ask them open-ended questions, not
Mhm.
close-ended questions. So, not questions that will be yes or no, but like this is a good one to even lead with is we want to share our legacy. So when you hear the topic of legacy brought up, what does that mean to you? It would be a great question to just even kick off that conversation, and not just like, here's the plan, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think another thing too is I I'll just draw from my own experience.
Yeah.
We haven't necessarily talked about finances or legacy planning with my parents, but
Yeah.
the conversation, the first initial conversation was had, and it was more of, my parents came to my brother and I and asked us kind of what we would like, not necessarily from their legacy or their, estate, but it was more of how do you want things to be within, how do you want things to be divvied up? And both my brother and I were very much like, we want everything to be in writing. That's all we asked. We said, we don't want to have, arguments. We don't want to argue as siblings. That's the least of our, worries at that moment. And so it's so important to both of us that we want things written out.
Yes, that clarity, right?
Mhm.
That way, like you said, it doesn't prohibit you and your brother from wanting to get together after your parents are gone and causing division in families like you and I both, I'm sure, have seen or heard
Mhm.
stories of,
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh,
So I'm
yes.
glad you did that. That's great that you had that conversation, and I'm sure at some point it will get more detailed,
Mhm.
the older your parents get, which really it is good eventually to get more clarity on all of it. Uh, but really, if whenever I am having a meeting with someone or just even leading my clients through this family meeting that they're having, I always try to ask them, what reaction do you want your kids to have after this meeting? And most of the time, people say, like, I want my kids to feel trusted. I want them to feel like, wow, we have an amazing family legacy that we have the ability to carry on, not just financially, but overall. Like we have amazing stories that we can carry on, a faith foundation, wonderful values that our parents have taught us. And so I think having maybe one-on-one conversations first can go a long way too before you have the group family meeting, because different kids really do need different space. So,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think, if someone's listening right now and thinking, we've been avoiding this. And I think what you just said, Jenna, that's a great place to start. Before having
Mhm.
that big family meeting, just have one conversation with one kid, see where
Yep.
their head is at, and truly just ask them questions. So, what
Yeah.
would they typically ask, Jenna?
Yeah. Again, just questions around what legacy means to them and what they would like to see the future of the family, and just get their input on what values are important to them, and what jewelry is important to them. It seems like a lot of families do fight over emotional personal possessions that mean a lot in families.
Mhm.
I remember in my family when my grandma and grandpa passed away, they had this grand piano. And
Yes.
I did ask my mother if I could share this story, and she said yes. So I want to share that. And they had this grand piano that there were just so many family memories around. And like my grandfather, every night for dinner, would pray, read a devotional, and then they would go into the living room, and the whole family would sit around this grand piano and they would play hymns and they would play different songs on this piano. So there were just so many great memories. And my mother and my uncle were a little competitive though on who could play better, right?
Of
But they
course.
had a lot of, just really good times around this grand piano. And I remember when my grandparents passed away, my uncle was the one that got the grand piano. And my mom really, it hurt her feelings. I remember she really would have liked to have known from them why they chose,
Mhm.
Uncle Ed to get the grand piano instead of her. And I told her, I said, Mom, I know they loved you the same. I know they wouldn't have wanted you to be, heard about this. But, it stuck with her. I think we may have not gone to even a couple family functions after that happened, just because she really was hurt that she didn't get that grand piano. And so I think having those one-on-one conversations with the kids to find out, like, what is it that is very important to you? Is it
Mhm.
mom's favorite necklace? Is it the grand piano? What is it with the legacy that matters most to you? And that way they're not having to say it in a group setting where they might feel uncomfortable right away,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, Jenna, and I think it's also worth, that initial conversation that you have with the kids. Make sure that you listen, right? You're
Mhm.
asking questions, you are being the attentive listener, not the explainer and the think this way, let them have their own opinions about it. That's what's more important. They want build that trust and that honesty in your relationship with your kids.
Yes.
So, legacy, isn't a single conversation, and
Right.
it's truly a relationship you build over time.
Yep.
So, Jenna, I know as a financial advisor, you have helped families successfully have this legacy planning meeting, if it's with them or on their own. And, in those cases, you've led the family meeting in your office or maybe home visit.
Yeah.
But if people are feeling overwhelmed that are listening to this or watching it, and are interested in having a meeting like this to communicate their legacy and last wishes to their next generation, how can they get a hold of you and your office to get them started?
Yes. Well, we would love to help families have this conversation and get a second opinion on their legacy plan. From the financial aspect, there's a lot to think about with legacy planning. You want to make sure, your kids avoid probate, don't have a ton of taxes, and that everything's set up properly. So we would be happy to not only help you have this family meeting, but also give you a second opinion on your legacy plan for your family. So you can give us a call at 1-800-994-8993. Again, that's 1-800-994-8993 to schedule that consultation. And for anyone that schedules a consultation with us this month, we will be also giving away the 2026 Enhanced Planning Guide and Beneficiary Guide. But with this show, we are also going to give you a family meeting conversation guide. So you will actually get the actual outline of how we've successfully helped other families have this family meeting, and really leaving the children feeling very trusted and very just grateful that they're part of this family legacy. And so it's a powerful way to really communicate that legacy to your family.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, Jenna. And, listeners and viewers, I look forward to, furthering these conversations about enhanced planning. And I know February is also Love Month. So we should talk about, the love that you are giving your family members and different ways that you
Yes.
can do that. So, Jenna, this is a fantastic episode. And thank you for joining us today on Retirement Today. We will see you guys next week. And please remember to visit the YouTube channel and type in Beacon Wealth Advisory to subscribe, and you will be notified every time a new video is out. So thank you, Jenna, and we'll see you guys next week.